Okay, let's go ahead and stop talking about chicken, get started. Yeah?
Hey, we're all friends here.
Awesome. Well, we have an intimate group here, so this would be great. You get to dig into your specific questions and all the things that you are working on specifically. Just to give you a quick introduction, my name is Jazelle. I run a digital marketing agency. I am also an actor, and so I am excited to share with you our panel. We have some filmmakers, we have some content creators, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves one at a time.
Hey, I'm Robert Therrall. I'm a writer and director, and I also edit social media videos. Guess that's why I'm here.
I'm Chase. I don't like Bojangles that much. I'm an actor and comedian, and a lot of the work that I do and we do is social media content based.
My name is Cruz and I like to make kind of ridiculous YouTube videos sometimes. It's really hard to explain, like I wish I could put it into better words. But I'll give you one of my video titles, and that was, I strapped myself to a filing cabinet for 24 hours.
Love that. We're going to come back to that, though. We're going to circle around, full circle. I do want to switch this question to you guys, just so we can get an idea of who's in the room. So if you can give me a raise of hands, if you're someone who is already doing content creation. Beautiful. Oh, yes. And then give me a raise of hands for someone who's interested in content creation, but trying to figure out their lane or what they're doing. Okay. Great. Okay, that's fine. Wonderful. All right, so let's start by talking about what led you into content creation, because it's a buzzword right now. Everybody says you should be doing it, you should be creating your own work. But what was the impetus to start you on doing your own content creation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, my goal's always been to do feature films, and I wasn't interested in social media at all, but I'm a huge music fan, and a lot of directors get started in music videos, and that is adjacent to social enough. And I have a friend that's a comedian. We did some music videos together, and they just got a bunch of views out of nowhere, and that kind of set me on a path of, okay, now I gotta figure out the social market, and there's actually a lot of cool tools here that can be used to help filmmakers promote their work.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
The first videos that popped off, that was like 2018, and we've been making stuff ever since. He now has a career in touring, hosting gigs. Yeah.
Very cool. That's an important question, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, you started super early. That's why it's different for you." So I'd love to ask that. Awesome, Chase.
That's a fair point, though. So I'm an actor. So I started off, I was doing background work for a comedy sketch. Robert actually directed our comedian friend Shama. It was his sketch. And after that, I just started writing for them and performing in more and more sketches. And then it kind of, I did this podcast that they did that was pretty big. And then they brought me on as the third host. I kind of started building my own following. And then me and Robert kind of branched off and started doing our own.
So I was in film school for a while, and ended up directing like our senior project, and it was very enjoyable, but one of the hardest things I've definitely ever done in my entire life. It was super stressful, and by the end of the month I was like kind of sick of my project already, and we hadn't even started filming yet. But at the same time, my friends and I as a group, we were filming like YouTube videos on the weekend. Any spare chance we got, we would just set up a camera and cook together, and then edit it to be really bad, but we enjoyed it, which is what matters, I suppose. And so like through that, I realized that I kind of was like falling more in love with like the social media world and being able to get out more ideas and like fully flesh them out and finish them. Whereas like sometimes with films I get super impatient and want to finish them too quick. But that's the beauty of social media. Thanks.
Yeah!
Absolutely. The whole process of creating content can be an uphill battle. I know for me, I'm someone who likes to script everything. I want to know exactly what I'm filming before I go in, and I batch. And then there's some times where I might be inspired and I might plug in a video here or there, but I can't wait for my inspiration to come in. So tell me, for you guys, what does it look like in terms of like how you come up with your ideas? What's your creation process?
You want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So I've spent a lot of time this year trying to figure out how to develop ideas because that's becoming the most important part. Like a lot of YouTubers are going for quality over quantity. And so like whatever your idea is, it needs to be like pretty big and pretty solid. And so I've tried to develop like a system where I can like sit down and come up with like consistent ideas, but that just has not worked for me at all. And so like whenever I sit down and try to think of an idea, I come up with some of the worst ideas possible. And this could include, like vlogging myself doing nothing for a day, which I thought was like, oh, I can make that entertaining. And I started filming for about 10 minutes. It was like halfway through making a cup of coffee and was like already bored with it. So I quit that idea. And so I've been experimenting with just coming up with ideas throughout like everyday life and seeing what that's like, and that has just been way more enjoyable. The ideas are more natural and I enjoy it a lot more that way.
So are you blocking off time, or you just let the inspiration hit you whenever?
Not really. I honestly come up with like some of my best ideas when I'm just like at work painting or something like that.
Nice.
I'm just doing like super boring, mundane activities and like just kind of getting the zone or something like that.
Do you have a limit for yourself, how many videos you want to post every week, month?
I've been trying to post like 4 short form content videos like a week.
Okay.
And then like long form videos, not really. It's kind of just whenever I can finish them.
There. Nice.
There's a saying, someone smarter than me could probably know the actual saying, but it's like, it's about inventions, where it's like necessity breeds invention. So it's like, for me particularly, social media content creation is a form of marketing. And so it's like, how can I get a group of people to follow me based on content that I make consistently that might not be the most effort that I can put into something, but it will get their eyes and their attention onto something that I am very passionate about, like a short film or something a little bit more in depth. And so me and some of my comedy buddies, we wrote a Hallmark parody sketch just for Instagram. And do we have that?
We got that, yeah.
Robert's my tech guy. Hey, you need something pulled up?
Wanna pull it up now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
let's watch this.
Oh, sound.
No, the audio's not coming.
Oh, you can plug in that great cord right
Yeah.
there.
It has that these days.
Ooh.
There we go.
Is that my childhood best friend ever left this small town? I thought that truck belonged to the best QPR high school ever had. How's running your small business and taking care of your ailing grandparent? Booze Clues has been struggling with grandma loves and hospice. How's New York Law School? Let's just say that the only bar I'm concerned about this weekend is the one you own. You know Sam in town? Sam? Duh. And also Stacy from high school. You mean the girl I had a crush on in high school before I moved away because I was sick of this small town? There she is now. Stacy from high school.
Oh my goodness, you startled me. I almost spilled my hot cocoa. It's been my favorite.
Since high school.
How you been back in high school who had a crush on me but moved away because he was sick of living in a small town?
Hey, the most successful wedding planner in the Southeast.
Hey, African American man who won't have any more lines for the rest of the movie.
There's real snow on the floor that really hasn't melted.
Oh, you don't have to.
You're engaged.
I am. But I don't know if I'm happy.
This feels like the greatest moment for a pun. Ooh, it's beginning to look a lot like Kissmas.
I thought he wasn't supposed to talk.
You're gonna get written out of the sequel.
So,
Very cool.
so we did this, and it gets 5 million views or so. Like Wayne Brady shares it to his Instagram account. And I think when you're interested in content creation, as I believe everybody here is, you think, oh, that's the ticket, right? You get 5 million views, a celebrity sees it, and you're like, all right, we've made it. But then you realize views don't actually mean anything. Views are just numbers on a screen. And after you do 1 million views once, you really realize that it means nothing. And so the idea of content creation, for me at least, is how can you take those 5 million views and take a fraction of that audience, whether it be 10,000 people, and get them to follow you so that way they can support bigger projects, something that can be monetized if you're looking for a financial thing, or just something that's a little bit more creatively fulfilling. I mean, that was very creatively fulfilling. We had a blast. Robert directed that. We wrote that. It was a ton of fun. But at the end of the day, if you want to be an actor, if you want to be a comedian, if you want to be a director, it's only so far that a short TikTok is going to get you in your career. And so it's about getting eyes on stuff that you actually really care about.
Awesome. I love that you said that marketing really is the key, right? Because we are all trying to get our attention on one thing. But before I keep going, I want to hear your answer to that question.
To the ideas?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think my main thing is just it helps to be really open and be a fan of a lot of different types of art, like take in a lot of different stimuli and stuff you wouldn't naturally gravitate to. Like we'll all watch like the top 10 movies that come out, but like a really small movie or something from a country whose language you don't speak, like you'll find really interesting stuff that way. And like with social media specifically, you usually have a very specific target audience you're going after, especially in the marketing space. So if you know the audience you're going after, you know the kind of things they're into, and you could target that, but you could also think, okay, what's something cool that they probably haven't seen, and put that in there. Like an example is, I did this, it was like a social media promo for, it's a Christian clothing brand. They're like based in the South, and I have been watching a lot of UK rap videos around that time, and they were shot in a really cool way. It's like I could do that, and I know this audience of Christians in the South probably haven't seen UK drill, and that's proven to look cool, and so they're going to think it's cool, but also they haven't seen it anymore. No one else in that space is doing that, so when it's on their feed, it's really going to stand out. So, just taking in a lot of different stimuli and then just figuring out what's going to stand out to some people.
And do you have yourself on a schedule in terms of how often you're creating?
Yeah. I mean, personal writing-wise, I try to write screenplays like every other day. The work stuff just comes when it comes. I try to set deadlines that are, I don't want to stay on one thing for too long. So.
Yeah, cool. I want to go back to you, Chase. You were talking about, I am creating a platform online so that people, when I do have something bigger that I want their attention on, the audience is there. So how do you make sure that you're connecting that, right? What about what we just watched is present in the work that you do so that it makes it worth it for those people to be interested, for you building that platform and that audience?
So for the Hallmark video in particular, if you enjoyed that video, you probably like sketch comedy, you probably have some sort of interest in comedy or film, or you could just like Hallmark movies, which is a possibility. My grandma loved that video. But to kind of like, so that's kind of like a very broad thing, right? So it's like, okay, if you're interested in comedy, you can follow me from that, or our buddy who was in that with me. And on a kind of more niche thing, so when we started working together, writing short films and everything, we realized we put out a short film and no one watched it. And it's like, well, how do you build an audience of people that want to watch short films? And so we started doing a weekly show, podcast, but that sounds, But so every week, we draw a random suggestion from a bowl, and we write a short film based on that suggestion in an hour on the show. And so people can kind of hear the whole creative writing process right there. Or the next week, we'll come prepared with 2 rival movie pitches for features, and then we'll pitch them against each other, and our audience votes for which they like more. So now you're building an audience. So you have a weekly podcast where people are tuning in, slowly but surely you're gaining an audience, and that audience is proven to enjoy screenwriting, short films, movies, and the creative process. So then when we put out our second short film, after we had kind of built a small audience with the podcast, a lot more people watched that short film versus the first one, immediately.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So you're wearing 2 hats. You're wearing that creative hat, but you're also wearing that marketing hat, right? So what's the difference? What is the difference between creating content for creativity's sake and then creating content for the marketing?
Yeah. I mean, you want everything to be creatively fulfilling. Like, what we do with the podcast, like, it's our way to have fun, but still feed, like, the social media content machine, because if you're expecting to get all your creative fulfillment from social media, you could get burnt out so quick. But you know, we like to do a short film a year. We're working on features together. Like, those are the things that we're really pouring our heart into. And then we could have a little bit of fun with the stuff that is meant to go up every week, just have a shelf life of a week. And yeah, I guess that's just the difference is we have certain pieces of art that we want to last for years or forever, and then other pieces of marketing, just let's try to do something fun, but just something that we're okay with forgetting about a week from now.
And are you guys looking at the metrics for the stuff that you're posting with your marketing, and how does that play into the kind of content you show up with?
Yeah, that's work.
Yeah, so for example, last season we did an episode where we both pitched, the Buzz Lightyear movie came out, the like standalone Buzz Lightyear, and so we pitched Woody movies, and so we both had our own version of a Woody movie, and immediately on TikTok, so marketing versus the content. So the content is the podcast. To market the episode of the podcast, what we do is a minute pitch. So we do a cell phone video where we give the audience a 1-minute pitch for the episode, for your feature. And that on TikTok got like 300,000 views almost immediately, because people were like, oh, this would be a great Woody movie. And then you turn those people into people that listen to the podcast full time. So that's kind of the, so when you see, oh, okay, the Pixar thing worked. Now it's like, okay, Morbius is coming out. Let's do a supervillain centered movie. So a Spider-Man villain movie. You know, just kind of picking up on what works and what doesn't.
Nice. And how about you, Cruz?
I agree, like, with what you said about, like, how important it is to, like, recognize your creative fulfillment, Robert, and, like, how, like, I feel like everyone who's going into social media, a lot of them want to make, like, long-form videos that are, like, those are just a little more fulfilling. You can kind of pour more heart and soul into them, but, like, the reality that we're in right now is, like, shorts are just a way that, like, if you're starting out, like, you've got to make those, like, vertical short videos, like, personally, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of that at the beginning, but then, like, you realize that it can kind of play to your strengths, and that, like, how easy it is to get views on those compared to, like, long-form videos, because the algorithm just loves them. They'll eat up anything that you throw, like, at it, pretty much. And so it's kind of, like, important to be able to figure out a way to market, like, yourself, who you are, and, like, the content that you're producing, and, like, cut that down to, like, 20 seconds, and just be like, if I were a viewer, like, would I watch this? You know, like, what are some ways that I could connect to this content, pretty much?
To give a little bit more context, you're creating videos on YouTube mostly, right? So on YouTube specifically, if you guys don't know, right? Well, really with all the platforms, everybody's trying to fight TikTok, right? So the short form videos is doing well there because they have competition, and if you can help them with that competition, they're going to favor you. Can you guys talk a little bit more about the other platforms that you're on, just to give context to all of the things that we're talking about here? You guys spoke a little bit about TikTok. Are you taking those same videos and popping them into YouTube? Are you popping them into Instagram as well? What does that look like?
So yeah, me personally, and for everything that we do, if you've made the short form content for one platform, you've essentially made it for all the platforms. You can just plug and play. And it's very interesting to look at the metrics of what platform a video worked on, but it didn't work on the other platforms. Yeah. And that helps you gauge algorithms as well. So if you're like, I don't understand why my videos aren't working on TikTok. If you post on TikTok, Instagram Shorts, and YouTube Shorts, or Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, and you see it does really well on YouTube Shorts, you know, okay, maybe this isn't a me problem, maybe it's an algorithm problem. So right now, with Instagram in particular, there was a lot of backlash that they got where it's like, my feed is all shorts of people I don't know. I want to see pictures again. So now, where we, for our show, we're getting 6, 7, 8,000 views on a video in a week, we're lucky to get 300 or 400 now. And it's because they fixed the algorithm. But that same video on YouTube Shorts will get 10,000 views that week. And so it's broadening your chances of getting the views and then getting those eyes on your product.
Do you guys have a hero platform that you're creating for? Because if you're looking at the metrics for all, like you said, some videos are going to do better on different platforms. How do you pick the platform that you're going to optimize for?
I mean, I think we found that socially interacting with our core fan base, Instagram is still good for that. Even though Instagram, it doesn't push our videos out to as many new people as possible, like our core people, see our stuff more and talk to us more on that. But yeah, we get more growth on other platforms now.
YouTube in particular, and you probably can speak a little bit more about this. YouTube seems to be the social media platform that's all about growth for new creators. So you can do a long form video and it'll get pushed to I think the way that their algorithm works is they push it to 1,000 people. And if a certain percentage, I think it's like 3 to 6% click that video, then they'll start showing it to 1,000 more, and then 1,000 more, and then 1,000 more. And that'll keep growing. And as long as people keep clicking, it's going to keep showing it to more and more people. So that's a really great platform. You can probably speak a little bit more like that.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. I love like you guys watching like what videos, how they perform differently on each of the different platforms. And I've learned that like YouTube, because it's so like heavily influenced by creators who make like very goal-oriented content. Like, I'm trying to think, for example, like Ryan Trahan doing like, I'm trying to cross the United States on a penny, you know, like stuff like that, and then they turn that into short form. So they're like, as soon as the video starts, they're like, I'm trying to figure out how to cross America on a penny, you know, and that stuff does so well on shorts. And so I've experimented with that, as well as like relatable content. So like I posted a reel 2 or 3 weeks ago that was about, a lot of my friends make fun of me for this, but I like to eat dry ramen, like those instant packs. I just pop them open and like eat them. It's like a good crunchy snack. I see some of you nodding your heads, sadly. But then, and so, like my friends, my circle immediately was like, Cruz, that's the weirdest thing ever. But I actually found like a whole community on the side of Instagram and TikTok specifically who were like, dude, this isn't weird, like we're with you, brother. And there's just like hundreds of thousands of people out there, like they also eat dry ramen. And I just thought that like it was interesting. Now that video specifically performed less well than it did on TikTok and Instagram, because I believe that that stuff is more optimized for like relatable content that is just like super quick thoughts and less goal oriented. So like recognizing that, and like, yeah, I just think that it's important to like notice that and like the different types of creators who do well on each of those platforms, and like knowing why they do that well.
Thanks. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's very important that like, to give the caveat that everything we're saying about specific platforms, it only applies for like right now. Like stuff could change
Tomorrow.
so often. Yeah. Like when I first started creating those first few videos that got a lot of views, that was in 2018 when Facebook video was big. Facebook was trying to compete with YouTube and everything. And like even to this day, those early videos, they might have 1 million or 2 streams on YouTube, Spotify. They have like 10 million on Facebook, just because they were at a moment where they wanted to push video out, and now you can't get 100 views on Facebook videos. So it's really important to keep up to date on all this stuff.
And that kind of speaks to being able to change your systems and change your process in the moment to capitalize on whatever the social media platforms are asking for or trying to push. Do you have anything that helps you to pivot with those things quickly? Or are you more interested in being dedicated to the consistency that you've already created rather than following the trends?
That's a really good question. So is the question essentially like, do you just keep making things you want to make, or do you kind of bend to the will of the algorithms? I think there's a give and take. Like, I don't think you should ever make anything that you don't want to make. Like, it shouldn't be a chore to make a video. For an example, on my personal YouTube channel, I did a video where I watched all of the Universal monster movies, and I just kind of like documented my thoughts as I watched all like 23 of them, and it did really well. It got like 50,000 views, and so I was like, well, I'm gonna keep making YouTube videos, and my next video was not about the Universal monsters, and it didn't do very well. And so I was like, okay, well, let me make another Universal monster movie centered video, and then that does well. And so at that point, it's like, okay, I know what works, but I don't know if I want to sit down and watch 12 more Universal monster movies from the 1930s.
Sure.
So you kind of have to make that sacrifice. It's like, okay, is my time and energy spent editing and filming and watching videos worth the 20,000 views that you might get in return? So I think it's just a personal give and take of what you want.
Yeah, and like where you're at in your career, like if you're in a space where you need a lot of growth, like, because again, like the whole reason our podcast exists is so we have a project that we can bend to whatever the algorithm wants. Just what did these social media companies want in exchange for growth? We'll do it. And then over here we have our short films, which we're never let Mark Zuckerberg tell us what to do with that. You know, like if I want to make a 15-minute werewolf movie, I'm doing it, whether it's good for social media or not. So yeah, just have something you care about, and then have the thing where you're willing to work with these companies.
I think everybody in this space is really lucky because you're coming to content creation as a creator, right? There's a lot of people on these apps creating because they want to sell pocket sockets or they want to sell something else and they are not creatives. So we're pretty lucky in that instance. We're also coming from a space where we're used to collaborating, but not all of us get the opportunity to collaborate on our content creation. And we have you who are a solo creator, right? You create solo?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have collaboration here. So I would love to see the difference between showing up by yourself to create those things over and over again and what that looks like as a team and how you guys use each other's benefits and strengths together.
So you're like asking like what it looks like to
Create by yourself.
It looks a lot like questioning why you're speaking to like a metal object in front of you. Like every time that just doesn't ever, like you don't get used to that really. Like I just set up the tripod and I'm literally explaining to nothing that I'm about to like strap myself to a filing cabinet. You know, and just like, I don't know, sometimes you have like a weird out of body experience, not necessarily in like a drug way, but like you're watching yourself in your mind from a third person perspective. That sounds so weird.
No, I seriously.
Okay, but yeah, that looks like that pretty much in terms of filming, and then like you pretty much have to, you talked about earlier, Robert, but like you've got to set yourself deadlines because there's no one telling you like, you need to post this. And I think like the biggest thing for like solo creators to help keep them motivated is like recognize like your why, like why you're creating content. And anytime you're feeling like lazy or anything like that, you got to look at yourself like in 5 years. You know, like every single piece of content you post, whether it's like your best work or not, is like just a little dart that's going in the dartboard, you know, and just like everything adds up in the end, you know, and like you just got to keep posting.
Why do you create?
Essentially, like, I've spent a lot of time because I've been working with a dude who's really talented at content creation, and he asked me that, and I was like, I don't know, to make people laugh, and he was like, you gotta dig deeper than that. And I think that, like, the biggest thing for me is social media is becoming, like, a huge, like, platform with people who have these crazy ideas. Like, look at Mr. Beast and, like, a lot of these big creators are like blowing up Lamborghinis, and like I really liked 2016 YouTube where like you could just watch people like vlog their day or something like that. And so like I don't necessarily like vlog in that way, but I like to have a middle ground, and I realized that that's because like ever since I've been working like at a high school, I've met a lot of people who sadly are like they're just living their life for their like 2 weeks of vacation each year.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're excited and passionate about, which like if that's your thing, go for it. But I like to like wake up every day and be like, yo, what's going on? Like, what can I be excited about today? And like, I realized that like I've started creating to help people find beauty in like the mundane activities. So like I like to, the other day I just like ran around the woods looking for like the coolest object I could find. And that was like the most fun video.
That was a good idea.
I think we have a dude with a question up here.
Oh, yes.
Hey, I just wanted to know, what's the name of y'all's podcast?
It's called Written By. You can follow us on Instagram, Written By Pod.
Okay,
Bring that pod. Nice.
thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, we should have plugged that.
And we'll do shout
My
outs
bad.
to all of the things at the end here before we jump. But I want to circle back around to you creating alone as a solo creator. And how do you look at all of the things that you could be doing and focus in on the things that are the most important, because you can't divide and conquer?
Honestly, like, before you start, like, making loads of money and stuff like that, where you kind of need to, like, start having a team, like, the biggest thing you can do is simplify what you can do and make the process as streamlined as possible. because the important part is like getting the quantity and quality of videos you need. So like right now in this area, it's like my main focus is just making videos and just getting them out. Like that's about it. Yeah.
So I need to get more specific because I
Okay.
know you guys are thinking about it. You hear, oh, research your titles, research your keywords. Are you doing that? Is that something you're putting on the back burner? Are you overthinking your thumbnails? All of those different things that you could be spending lots of time optimizing.
Ooh, I've learned that the easiest way to do it is to come up with like an idea from the get-go that you're like confident in enough. For example, like my last video, I took an ant skydiving, like an insect. It sounds really dumb. That's funny, I swear. But anyway, so like from the get-go, I was like, you know what, that's an idea. And like you can already see the title, you can already see the thumbnail, like exactly what, like if the idea is strong, the video almost makes itself. You just have to go and film it and then like sit down and be like, what's a screenshot I can take from this video? Like, and that's about it. I'm really working on trying to like come up with good enough ideas to the point where they like can almost market themselves. But just in terms like if I'm not that confident in a video, I definitely spend time looking, like I'll just look at the trending page and just see like, are people going for like longer titles and stuff like that, and just try to look at like the best moments I can pick out and the best way to market the video in the sense of like a viewer's first impression, like a thumbnail or a title.
Yeah. So what serves you as a solo creator is really following the inspiration,
Yeah.
right? If you could get inspiration that's big enough, it'll take care of the rest of the things.
Definitely.
Nice. What about you guys? Collaborating together. Yes.
I want to see the ants skydiving.
I do too.
Oh.
I do as well.
Okay, we're gonna find this.
You too.
Is it something?
Yes.
I took an S. We're talking about that out there. I was like, we're gonna work that in. We gotta talk about that.
Oh, and you get paid for this.
I do not have YouTube credit.
Are we really about to watch this?
Oh my god.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Skydiving is one of the most insane things that human beings do. But it's gotten to the point where, you know, just about any guy can go up and do it if they really want to. Which is why I want to do something that could potentially change the course of skydiving history as we know it.
So
I
true.
want to take an ant skydiving.
This should have 5 on the
Not
podcast.
family related, like the insect, you know, the
Where are you filming this? Church. Yeah, okay.
My friends and I like we
But the only question is,
basically run a church's social media.
Okay.
how do
For
I
content.
pull this off? Because there are.
Did you steal that sign?
limitations. I am like 99% sure I can't bring anything with me on the plane. So I would have to build a contraption of some sorts that would keep the ant attached to me somehow.
What's
So
the
I did some
time
thinking
spot-
and came up
time
with the
spot
idea
for
that
the-
there's this stuff
to
called
watch
airline
with the ant in it.
that they use in those fish bubbling.
We see the flying ant. We had to put it into a bracelet to keep him safe.
I think like right there is a good spot.
Hot, sweaty, terrified. It's very similar to the last time I ate Applebee's.
Oh, man.
I was sweating, dude. I was terrified.
This is amazing.
I don't remember any of this either.
Are you going to take other insects skydiving? You should upgrade to a bigger one there.
That'd be.
Act like a beetle.
I don't know. You think a lizard would live?
That's crazy. Can you tell us how you came up with that idea?
Okay, so my like birthday was coming up, and we were gonna go like skydiving for it. And I was like, I gotta turn this into content. But then I looked up like skydiving videos on YouTube, and there's like thousands. And I was like, well, how can I set this apart? And I was like, well, the skydiving rules are pretty strict, like in terms of like what you can do up there. I mean, you're strapped to someone. And like, I don't know what it was, but I was like, what if I could take something up there with me that would be ridiculous? And what if it was a living thing that people wouldn't care about too much if they died?
Safe. Something safe.
So I wish I could go further in detail, but that was like the exact thought process that I just went through.
This video is not PETA
complicated.
approved, is it?
Probably not.
I know, I was very worried.
Awesome. Okay, let's put the ant back in
Do
there.
you still have the ant?
He is somewhere in the Pacific Ocean.
The ocean.
Wait, time out. You didn't safely land?
Okay, no. Like,
Ant tour.
we didn't do a ocean landing. But my friends and I took him to the beach and basically put him in a shell and floated off.
The ant has been on more vacations than I have.
Like, okay, so here's my philosophy for if PETA called me.
He was dead?
Well, okay, but basically, like if PETA came up to me and was like, dude, this is so like horrible, you can't do this. I looked it up and an ant's lifespan is like 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh.
So I gave it a crazy last day.
Man, that is wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did he die in the tube?
So I put some peanut butter in there to like keep him safe and fed.
Does he have oxygen?
Yes, there were micro-sized holes in there. Trust me, guys, I've thought through this.
Watch the video. Watch the video.
And so whenever I got down, I don't want to go too far into detail, but I did find him like kind of smushed in there, and like his body was not the normal shape of an ant.
Oh. That is still worse.
So yeah, that's about it.
If you watch the video, I assume that's in there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody
Talking about
should watch
marketing right now.
Right? We're gonna get you some.
This should have a million views. This is amazing.
Do you have a short version of this?
I do not.
You don't? Okay.
Oh, you got to.
You should.
Well, I kind of did like a short and basically built it up all the way until like right as I jumped out of the plane.
Okay.
Okay.
Full-
Yeah, no, I've
Little
seen
teaser.
that. I know I've
Okay.
seen that, yeah.
Little teaser. Okay, back to collaboration. Reeling it back in. Collaborating. How you split up the work. Divide and conquer. What's important?
I guess figuring out what the strengths are of each person on a team. And I mean, I don't mean to plug the podcast again, but we literally record our writing process, the two of us together, so you can actually kind of hear what it's like. Our comedian friend we write the Hallmark sketches with, on October 16th, we're putting out an episode with him, and that episode is exactly how every single writing session with the three of us goes, which is the first 20 minutes. We just talk about like what we think is funny, what's been making us laugh recently, and then someone brings up an idea, and we're all just pitching lines, and you have to just approach it really humbly and just be like, the best idea wins, no matter who it came from.
Yeah. And also like collaborating in content creation in general, or really anything. It's all about knowing your weaknesses as a person, because if you think that you're good at everything, you're gonna butt heads with anybody. And when it comes to our work stuff, Robert's a director. I'm not a director. I don't have organizational skills. I don't have the eye for a camera. So he handles all that stuff, and he's also a phenomenal editor. And then my strengths are more on the on-screen side of things. And then also I obsess over social media analytics. So when it comes to editing short form, that's something that's a strength for me. And so you just need to understand what you're not the best at, and then find people who are really good at it. You know, they say always be the dumbest person in the room. And when I was in college and I found Robert and our friend Sham and everything, they're all super talented creators, comedians, directors, actors, and they're working at a high level already. And then you kind of get this jump of education, because in 1 year I've learned working with them what took them 10 years to learn maybe. And so just surrounding yourself with the right people and collaborating with people that make you better.
Those are really good points. Can we go around and share pitfalls that you think are important to avoid doing content creation?
Comparison is a big one. Like, if not the biggest one for me. Like, you can't watch someone who has 50 million subscribers and expect your first video to like, not only like be as good as that, but also like perform as well as that. And so that's a big one for me that kind of have to like, kind of take captive in my mind, you know?
Yeah.
A big pitfall is not putting too much on your plate and then changing direction frequently, because when you're making stuff online, it can kind of feel and you get views, it gets kind of addicting for a little bit, and you're like, oh, I want to do more, I can do more, I can do this thing, I can do a show, I can do a podcast, I can do weekly YouTube videos, I can make shorts every day. Gary Vee, you probably know who that is, right? He says that you should be posting like 6 to 8 shorts or TikToks a day. And it's just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because it's like, when you are spending your whole day, or even if you just spend a whole weekend making enough content to post 6 to 8 times a day, you're not putting your everything into one video. If you just posted one video a week, one video a month, but you put everything into it, it's going to be a lot better, and it's going to make you feel a lot better. So the pitfall of not taking on too much. We do short films and we do our show, and then sometimes we'll take on additional projects, and then that's when maybe the podcast dips in quality a little bit because we show up and we're like, I'm tired, I don't want to sit here for an hour and write a short film about a garbage man. But you just kind of got to navigate that.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Is there like a balance that you guys have found from the point of like wanting to perfect every video versus like eventually hitting publish on it?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, that's just the dichotomy between the short form content stuff and our short films. Like the short films are the thing we're going to put everything into. We're not going to hit publish on until we're 100% on it. We delayed a release of a film like 9 months just because the music wasn't there. But and again, since we're putting that much effort into that side of it, we've gotten comfortable with just press and post on podcasts and social media videos, just because people need something, and we try to make everything really funny. So even if it isn't the highest quality, at least you're laughing at something. So yeah, it's cool.
Do you think that in your arena, wherever you are showing up with the type of content that you're showing up with, is it important that you make yourself stand out? And if so, how are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, really knowing yourself and what makes you unique and what you're uniquely passionate about, like that'll help you stand out. Like if you're looking at just things that are trending and try to hop on a trend, if that trend doesn't line up with what you're personally really into, you aren't going to compete with the people who that subculture, that genre of thing is their everything. So it's a fool's errand to even try to hop onto something like that.
Yeah.
And to hop on to this, right, so I took an ant skydiving. That feels like an idea that maybe Mr. Beast would come up with. But only Cruz would have come up with the ant one, right? And so I was in this acting class recently, and everybody did a monologue or whatever. And some people did it the right way, the technical way, the way you're supposed to do it. And some people just did it the way that they thought it should be done. And the takeaway is, there's a lot of people that can do things technically. Like Mr. Beast can perfect this type of video, but only Cruz could take an ant skydiving. And so you just gotta be yourself, and that seems pretty cliche, but only you can be you. Nobody else can be you, unless you're like a twin or something.
But I need to ask you more, because that's hard, right? It's easy once you've established your brand, you know who you are, you know how you fit into content creation as a whole. But when you're starting, how do you find that? Because a lot of people will tend to think, oh, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about how I see the world. How do you get past that?
Yeah, I mean, that could extend far beyond just content creation into more like therapy, just understanding who you are. But again, going back to like, a lot of my inspiration just comes from consuming a lot of different types of art. You start to figure out what you gravitate to more than others, and once you get into more specific niches of content you enjoy, that's stuff you could also be making in. There's a social media sketch we did for Shama right here. This is a very specific niche, which is Shama does comedy in the Christian space. And we're all huge fans of the TV show The Bear. And so we did The Bear if it was in a church kitchen. And the thing about this is it's not the highest performing sketch, but there aren't, not every Christian person is into The Bear, not every person into The Bear is into Christian comedy, but the few people that are into both, it's like, oh, my thing is finally out. No one else is doing this. And so you could get a really passionate following that way. So even if it's not like a lot of numbers off the bat, like that's still really helpful for you. I'll play the sketch.
That's how much.
Fire, coleslaw, sloppy wet. Cousin in Christ, I swear if you ruin this 2 p.m. pop-up, I will send you to the further games that are this match. Keep pushing presentation, hide it under the table, just as your foot. Take one, all these pigs in me. Who the heck put broccoli in this mac and cheese? Can't taste the sweet fire, cheese out extra layer. It needs to be the consistency of soda from 15 things goes on. You can't spell diet without the word die. 5 baked beans and whole bacon slices. See that veggie tray? Nobody can do this. Fire, body, and blood of Christ. I call these Jesus and where's the fried chicken? Where's the Walmart? Walmart? 86 to go fish at 8 of the chicken and Jazelle. Oh my gosh. Language. I'll certainly stop in here. Candy.
Yeah. Yes, Pastor. That's probably the best line.
So yeah, that's just a product of us knowing a niche that one of our friends already serves, and just like a specific thing that the 3 of us are into.
Yeah.
That's good though, Robert, because I heard this piece of advice this week from this creator named Max Fosh. He's fantastic. He was on a podcast and he said that it's important to create content for the audience that you want. And like that's exactly what you guys did. There was like you guys like the Christian comedy as well as the bear, and you just created that for people who like really enjoy that. I've seen the bear and I love that. That's just like that's perfect, you know.
Yeah. Doing these videos is hard because I didn't grow up in church, and so I don't get half the jokes that we did in that.
So besides the bear, where are you pulling inspiration from?
I don't know. I devour a lot of like many hours of YouTube a week. So like if I listed off everything, but I really like videos that involve like you're still kind of like yourself in front of the camera, but they're also putting other people in the spotlight. So like there's this dude Ryan Trehan. I've talked about him, and I will talk about him for the rest of my life because I love him. He's one of my favorite creators. But he did that penny series where he traveled America on a penny. But like he just met so many people.
You talked about this last year.
I did.
You really invested.
Probably next year too. He did it again this year, but Europe. So who knows next year? But anyways, he just like takes time to put other people in the spotlight as well, and just like hear their stories, and just like YouTube videos that you watch and you're just like, I feel like I was just hanging out with that person, and that's like very important for me. Is like that's one of the beauties of social media, is that like people can watch that stuff and they may not have like many friends like in person, and they get to like watch stuff and feel like they hung out with someone and connected with them. So like that's very important from the inspiration that like I pull from, is like people who I felt like I've hung out with, and like even like 10-year-old Cruz watching all the Minecraft YouTubers, like I felt like I was hanging out with them, and like I don't know, so it's just like years of like figuring out like how you want your videos filmed and stuff like that, and like what you want the audience to see in your stuff.
Yeah, like Robert said earlier about just consuming a ton of different types of media. So like I watch 3 movies a week, maybe less, maybe more. I watch YouTube videos, I watch TikTok, sometimes way too late at night. You know, I just watch everything. Sometimes when I'm at work, the people in my office are watching those reality dating shows, like what's the one?
Love is Blind.
Love is Blind, that's the one. So it's like you're sitting there and you're watching something you wouldn't usually watch, and you're like, well, how would I do this? So then you come up with an idea of, okay, what if you did Love is Blind, but with vampires? And you know, only you can bring that kind of twist off of something that you just consumed that you maybe don't necessarily like, but it's something that you're ingesting.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should make that with vampires. That'd be great.
Inspiration.
Oh, inspiration. I mean, a ton of movies. I mean, my big sources of inspiration, Edgar Wright and Wes Anderson, are 2 directors that make comedies that utilize the camera for comedy well. And you'll notice that a lot in some shorts, even, where Wes Anderson's huge thing is he does a ton of pans and tilts. Same with Edgar Wright. You'll notice a lot of that, and how quickly all these are cut together and how it all feels fluid. A lot of music videos too. I think that's where a lot of stuff I do can get set apart from a crowd. Is a lot of filmmakers will just watch movies, but watch a ton of music videos and from a ton of artists that aren't necessarily like top 40 artists that not everyone would know. Like I got a pitch for a short I've been working on. You'll just see, this is not organized, but just like all the images I'm pulling that I'm eventually going to organize into a short film. It's about a werewolf, so that's that. But yeah, man, like all this came from music videos, and other directors wouldn't be grabbing stuff like this. They'd be looking at like a Terrence Malick movie or something. Oh, and then finally foreign language stuff, like watch stuff from other countries. There's a lot of really cool stuff being done that no one's watching, so
Nice.
yeah.
So you're always looking for the inspiration in different places.
Yeah.
Now, inspiration is kind of a beautiful thing to have, but it doesn't happen all the time. So when you don't have the inspiration, when you might be like in a creative slump, how do you push past that?
I just go outside. Honestly,
Go for
like,
a walk, drink some water.
As simple as that, like sometimes, especially like, because I edit a lot for my work, so I spend a lot of time inside, like behind a computer, and then like after I'm finished working, I'll be like, I need to come up with some ideas, and just like hit nothing for now.
Yeah.
Like, well, I haven't been outside in 9 hours. I should probably go get some sunlight and just go on a walk, and then like a lot of times that just kind of opens up a can of worms that you explore with your brain and come up with a cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, keeping a consistent schedule, where if you have a deadline, if you aren't feeling inspired, you still got to come up with something.
Yeah.
That could help. And then, it's especially a danger when you're creating content, but like, try not to live on your phone. That really will kill inspiration. Like Cruz said, go outside. You know, talk to people that don't even work in film, because I pull a lot of ideas just from hanging out with friends that aren't invested in this 24/7.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in, like, if it's not a paid thing and you don't have a deadline and you're not feeling it, you just want to binge watch Doctor Who, just take that time for you. You know, you'll come back around to it if you're a creative person, or even if you're just burnt out on one aspect. Like if you're burnt out on cutting Instagram and TikTok clips, but you're still pretty passionate about this long form video idea you have, just changing or shifting your focus onto a different creative project. I bought an embroidery machine, and so I've been having a lot of fun with that, which is a creative thing, but it's not in the content creation world or filmmaking world.
Jason's going to show up next year just in all of his own embroidery.
I'm wearing a shirt I embroidered.
Do you
under
think
this.
that you could like embroider the whole thing, like top to bottom, so it's just one thick like piece of embroidery or whatever
Maybe
you
one
call
day
it?
if I'm good enough.
That'd be awesome. I'll see you next year in that, hopefully.
I know I've spent a lot of time trying to force my creativity, and not in a negative way, but like, what are the things that I know that if I do, I can bring the inspiration out so that I can push out the content, because it is paid, right? So on any given month, I might be creating strategy for 3 to 5 different brands that are businesses. These are not people who are creative. These are brands that need content created. So I will do things like, oh, well, this month I'm gonna go and look for a song that'll be the soundtrack to each brand. And then I'll put the song on and I'll go for a walk. Or I try to have these things that I can go back to every time I'm creating, so that if there is a deadline, I could figure out something to push the creativity, or like Big Magic says, call the creativity into the room, right?
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah.
Jazelle? I'm sorry if I interrupted.
No.
What have you found like is the best thing to do? Like say that the next day you need to wake up and you need to like work on content. What is the first thing, like how do you spend the first hour of your day?
First of all, I do my creativity in the morning, because I'm the type of person who can wake up and start creating before I brush my teeth. So I love to do it first thing in the morning. But the first thing I want to do is warm my brain up. So if it's something like listening to music, or going to look at the last couple of high performing posts that we had to kind of get me in the mood. I also, when I'm on social media, I'm constantly saving things that are inspiration. So I'll go to my saved videos or my saved posts and kind of look through to see what the pulses of that industry and what's been exciting me and what other people are excited by, because that's pretty helpful. Or I'll pretend to talk out loud to my plushie that sits on my desk, and I just talk about different things that are interesting to that industry. But yeah, I try to do something different every time because I have ADHD and I can't do the same thing every time. It just won't bring forth the creativity.
That's good.
Yeah.
But I spend a lot of time on strategy. Not as much time on the execution, partly because I don't do the content creation. I have like a content creator who does the designing and stuff like that, so I spend a lot of time on the strategy. So I have a lot of those tools. What are you guys spending your most time on?
I think editing probably takes, especially if you're in video, editing, or if you're a graphic designer too, probably just the actual designing, but editing is probably the biggest, because there's a difference. We watched a bit of your ant skydiving video. That's a very distinct style of editing that works for YouTube. That's not going to be the same video edit that you do for a church bumper or a lawyer's office. And so editing is just like a really big chunk of the process that, if you don't like editing, can be very tedious.
Yeah. You said something about like creating content when you don't feel like it for a business, or like you have to do it. It's not a personal thing, and I have to do that all the time. I feel like most of what I get paid for, I don't necessarily like, but you, kind of what Chase is saying, like you want to find a little in where like there's at least something in there that you could be proud of. Like if I have to do a really boring promo TikTok, but I've always wanted to try doing a Super 8 effect. If it fits that brand, I could, the editing itself is a little boring, but at least I get to play around with making something look like Super 8 films.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot.
Yeah. And then also, like, if you are creating for other people, putting that on to the other person in terms of looking to them for the inspiration can help too, right? Because if you're not inspired, how can I create content for you? So we kind of use some devised theater techniques with our clients to trick them into like being excited about their business, because usually when they're coming to talk to me, they're not very excited. They're a little stressed out, burnt out. So a lot of the time we're using fill in the blank prompts to kind of get them to, one, step into the shoes of their audience and to think about things differently. So we'll do something like, if this moment in your life was turned into a t-shirt, what would the t-shirt say? Right? So now they are thinking about their business in a way that's a little bit more creative or a little differently. And I think there's always these little windows into what we already are doing that can make us think about things a little bit differently. Cool. So I did want to make sure we got a chance to answer some questions. I know we had some questions pop up in the moment, but let's take some more. Yes.
Jazelle, specifically for you, but I'd love to hear everybody's take on it. How can they cross-promote? How can, like, the panel help each other to grow their brand, their business, their likes, their watching?
Ooh, that's good. I think you guys might be better answering that. But I would say figuring out where the strengths are and where people could use each other, and also where does the audience match up, right? If you know that this is interesting and this is the Venn diagram of all of our businesses and this is where we have overlap, that could be an interesting place to create content. Or if you know that we don't really do a lot on shorts, but you do a lot on shorts, maybe that's the space where we can come in and create content for you guys, and I'll man the editing on this since that's something that you're not used to. We kind of talked about strengths earlier, but let's brainstorm in the moment. How would you guys collaborate if you were to do it together?
Well, I will say one of the great things about having a podcast is it is a great excuse to talk to really cool people.
Yeah.
Like it took us 3 years to grow it to a good place, but we're at a place now where we could reach out to just random people we're a fan of, ask them to be on, and they'll usually say yes. So that's a great way that's beneficial for everyone. There's Chase's favorite tweeter, whatever, Xer, I don't know. We just randomly reached out to him because we thought his tweets about movies were funny, and he came on our show, and it's great for both of us, and we had a great time.
Yeah, so like for us specifically, you don't make a lot of like screenwriting content, right? But we can still have a creator on. Like we've had actors on, we've had musicians on, and even though it doesn't directly relate to the screenwriting process, there's writing in everything. So if we had you on Written By, we would talk about your writing process for a YouTube video. Like for your Ant video, did you script out everything, or was it mostly improv? Like how did you go about that? And then depending, like if it's our friend, like we know Cruz, so we would probably invite him on for the whole episode, and he would jump in and help us write the short film for that episode. But if it's someone like the Twitter guy, we didn't feel comfortable keeping him for an hour and then making him work. So it's just a small interview portion at the beginning.
I also, some of my favorite content to digest is like seeing people out of their comfort zones, which I think collabs, like that's why they work sometimes. So like in a heartbeat, I think that like, if I had the opportunity to bring these two guys skydiving, like so many people would be like, yo, I'm so excited to see these guys who are like writing movies, like on a podcast, like skydiving. And so like that stuff is really fun to watch, is people just getting out of their like comfort zones.
I think we need to strap mics to us, and we have to come up with a film as we're
you're falling. That's really
I mean, the whole podcast is going to be.
But there is something funny to that though. So it's like trying to come up with a movie idea from the time you jump out of the plane to the time you hit the ground. That would work for both. That's very fun.
You could actually just write it as the adrenaline rush is still there.
Yeah. Oh, like when you hit the ground.
Yeah, when you land. Yeah.
That's a good idea. I'm not skydiving though, so we'll never know.
I think that's a prerequisite.
You think you could hold on to like a clipboard and like?
I was thinking about. They probably don't
allow that.
Do you think it's lethal if it falls from that high? Like if I drop it?
We could.
You kill ants, so we
All
can't really.
I was heartbroken. It's not like that's just like an okay topic. His name was Skippy Joe. Okay.
Skippy Joe.
You tied yourself.
Don't you dare
to,
say his name.
you tied yourself to a filing cabinet for 24 hours. So there's something funny about, okay, we're tied to a filing cabinet for 24 hours.
Or what if like we wrote a movie with a guy who genetically like just has like a condition that he has a filing cabinet like instead of an arm.
Yeah, I mean that's the creative process. You just keep coming up with ideas back and forth like this until you come up with something you both are passionate about.
Let's keep workshopping it. We'll see the finished product next year.
Okay.
We'll bring it back.
Yeah.
How have you all obtained your understanding of the algorithm? Is it all word of mouth, based on observation, or from like a direct, reliable source?
Ooh,
really good.
I'd love to start answering this. I think it should be testing. It's great to hear what people are thinking and what Facebook or TikTok is saying when they release their statements, but that's not going to necessarily work for everybody's platform for the audience that already exists. I can be in a different brand's platform and see that content is performing really well for them that will not work for a different brand. So I think testing is the most important thing.
And also like a big thing that's changed over the past like couple years. I don't know how recent this is, but like people are looking at, or companies are looking at retention versus like likes and stuff like that. And like something that helped me a lot was paying attention to what like I would sit through, like actually intentionally going on a platform and like scrolling through and like what videos do I want to click on and like where would I give my time. Like helps me understand like how that works, I guess, and like creating content that people would like want to give 5 minutes to or a minute to and stuff like that.
And you're not always creating content to get the views, right? Sometimes you're creating content to get the action. I need to get them to this landing page. And so this video might have had a quarter of the views that our normal videos have, but more people took action on this video. So we want to produce more of this video. Might not be the whole thing that we're doing, but we're gonna scatter this into the strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And also, just like when it comes to experimenting is a great thing, but looking at your own analytics, going through all that, and then also there's like whole YouTube channels dedicated to people who are social media gurus, and they talk about this is what happened in the Instagram update this week, this is what happened in the TikTok update this week, and I would say take everything with a grain of salt from them, because the only reason that they're doing well in social media is because they're teaching you how to do well in social media. if that makes sense. So it's a cycle. So it's like their videos are doing good because they're teaching you something, and so you're watching it, and it's just, they don't actually know outside of teaching. And so, but if it's a YouTuber who will talk about a patch update from Instagram this week, and like, hey, the Instagram update this week said that they're focusing more on carousel photos as opposed to still photos. Just keeping your eye out there. You can find it pretty easily if you just go on YouTube and be like Instagram update and then type in the date. So.
I got nothing to say. I mean, Chase does this for his job, so I rely on him.
Other questions? Yes.
I found out that algorithm likes to tell you who you are instead of you telling the algorithm who you are. I find that it's easier to go viral for something that you absolutely hate, rather than about things that you actually like. You spoke earlier about it. How do you really find your core group to have them come over to the things that you actually like, but still retain those numbers from going viral from the videos that you hate?
I think we've all kind of been there. Like the thing that goes viral isn't always what you expect it to be. Like our most popular podcast episode is one of our least favorites, so we relate. But I mean, it's just like trying to get a hit is just entering the lottery, and if it didn't turn out the way you wanted, if you didn't quite get the audience you wanted, it's okay, because you're just going to throw a lot more things out there. Like if you're making something true to you and there's a niche out there that wants it, they'll eventually find it. And you even touched on it earlier, like even if a video doesn't get a lot of views, that's not the end of the world. Like growth isn't the only metric for a video being successful. If you make a video that really resonates with one person, and that one person follows you, likes all your stuff, is a fan of you to the point that they'll like spend money buying your merch. If you're a really big creator that want to see you touring, like that is worth it almost as much as, I mean, that's worth even more than 10 million views for people that are never going to watch something else. So yeah, even if something doesn't get a lot of views, it's not the end of the world. If you consistently put things out that are what you want, then eventually people will find it.
Yeah, and transitioning people from the videos that you dislike to the videos that you do like is a lot slower of a process. But as long as you are doing both, there will be an intersection. So if you've realized that, making TikToks about the latest iPhone gadget update app thing does really well on TikTok. However, you're passionate about talking about Broadway news. You can make various different types of content, and each will find its own audience, especially on TikTok, the way that their algorithm works. And that's when you have the problem where you have a TikTok with 1 million views and then TikTok with 12 views, and you're like, how does that work? It's the same profile. TikTok especially, each video is its own community. The comment section on a singular TikTok is its own thing, which is why if you want to build a community, maybe TikTok's not the best place to build a community. YouTube, however, if you pick a niche, something that you're passionate about, and just keep going there, people will find you. Like how he said about eating the dry ramen. Essentially, if you're making content that you don't like to get views, maybe that's not the platform that you want to focus on.
Also, there's what's considered hero, hygiene, and hub content, and they say every brand should have all three. One is the content that people might be searching for. One is the content that lets people get to know you, and then the other is content that is just being on top of the conversations that are happening or the trends that are happening. So if you have a little bit of both, and some of the videos are going viral and not all of it, that's pretty normal. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you work with a client who is so uncreative, but they really want their idea to be utilized? And so how can you work with them to come up with something that viewers will like?
Yeah, this is deep. Yeah, no, we understand.
Yeah, we get it. I mean, you want to figure out what their goal is for the content, and present something that is going to solve their problem, whether it's their idea or not. Like, and you want to introduce elements of their idea, because if you don't give them what they're paying for, they're going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
But if you present it as you are solving their problem, they're usually pretty open. And also, like, just a great talent for any director or producer is just inception, like coming up with your own idea and making them think it was theirs. And a lot of people don't want to do that because a lot of people want credit, but if you have an idea and you're talking to them and make them feel like they came up with the idea and they're the genius, then everyone wins.
Yeah. Give them something sweet to help the medicine go down, right? And then also I think that it's important to, sometimes if you're working with a client for over a long time, sometimes you just got to do it. You know, the first time they might, you know, take your version of it, but sometimes you have to say, all right, let's do this version of the content and let's test it and let's see.
I agree.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Other questions?
How do you find more jobs? I mean, how do you sell yourself as a director? How do you get started, especially when you're in these seats and you don't already have contracts and you don't already have the resume? How do you get there?
That's a good point, because we didn't talk anything about money. We didn't say anything about
Well,
that.
we don't have any.
I mean, no, I'm in that interesting place. I'm looking at transitioning out of my day job right now, so I'm figuring that out. But I've just, I've had a long career, like, being a guy in a company, just doing whatever they want, and oftentimes it's not what I want to do, but it's what pays the bills. But I just make sure outside of there to be working with people and just do a lot of stuff purely for fun and meeting new people. That's how I met Chase. I met Cruz on a short film this past year, and all that fun stuff that doesn't make any money. You're meeting a lot of people that do the same thing as you, and eventually
Someone's going to make money.
yeah, eventually somebody needs money, somebody needs help on one of their projects, and you slowly build up a clientele that way.
Yeah, networking, which I don't like the word networking because it kind of sounds like you're trying to get something from everybody. But the year after I graduated college, all I did was freelance video production. So I worked as a grip or a PA on sets. And the only reason I got any jobs at all is because 2 or 3 of my best friends had been working in video production for 10 years. And so it's literally just the people you know. And then, you know, work hard and you'll get there. And I think this is another cliche thing, but it's like the people who don't give up will make it eventually. So it might take some time. You might have to have a different job while you're pursuing clients and reaching out to small businesses on Instagram or trying to meet people at events like this that need help. And slowly but surely, you'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Or at least I hope. I don't know.
I'm in an interesting situation because my day job is content creation, right, for different brands. And then I have my own personal platforms, like on YouTube, we're at 130,000 subscribers. On TikTok, we're at 30,000. And I don't post it all for my own platforms because my creativity is kind of exhausted by the time I get time and energy to do my own thing. I think when you're reaching out and trying to get other people to take a chance on you, because that's where we're starting, you can lean into your creativity. So look at who you want to create content for right now and figure out ways to offer them something that they need, whether or not you're gonna fully get paid for it the first time, that's not as important, right? Because if I can go around and say, hey, I did social media content for this brand, that might be enough and more than the payment that you would have received. So I would also say offering things for cheaper or offering to work for free and then going out to get the yes because somebody's gonna say yes.
Oh, but also, like, really make fun stuff for yourself and make fun stuff that you have full creative control over. Like, every single job I've gotten has been because of a music video or a personal short film. Nobody has seen any of the work I've done for brands or churches or anything and thought that was cool because my voice comes out more clearly in the fun stuff that's just made just for me.
In terms of making money online for content creation, because we didn't touch on it that much, at all. Can we talk about that a little bit? Is that a goal for you guys, is to use content creation as a way to make money or as a vehicle to get attention on your projects? Or is it a little bit of both?
I think everybody would like money.
Right?
That was turning them down.
And so that's a really interesting, if you're going to make money on content creation purely off of platform and not ad revenue from people trying to sponsor your videos, right now, YouTube is your best bet, especially if you're making long form videos. Their monetization program is like really, really good, as opposed to Instagram, which removed their monetization program. So now you can't make money at all on there. And then TikTok just reintroduced a new version of their monetization, and it's supposedly really, really good if you're getting millions of views every week.
And if your video's over a minute, or
Yeah,
there's all these
yeah.
things that you have to check. It can't be a stitch, it can't be, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of it is if you want to make money and like one day your day job, I mean my day job isn't making my own personal content. I do social media for a company. And if you were to ever want to make it for just your personal brand, your best bet is probably sponsors. So our show, written by, we've had sponsors from people who make screenwriting, how would you explain it? Like
Some software or workshops, yeah.
There's like board games and card games that are about writing, and so they'll reach out or will reach out. But yeah, money isn't big in content creation unless you can, like I said at the beginning, take that audience and put it somewhere else.
And then also like finding other creators to work with too. Like I know that there's a big community. This is how like I kind of have like my job currently is like sometimes these older people, I'm going to use that term, who like get into these very specific niches and they blow up and they're like, shoot, I'm making money off of this. I don't know like how to like continue this. And so like, for example, this old dude I edit for, he makes aviation videos, and like a lot of people love him, and he just needed like help from someone who knew a lot about social media and like can help him like optimize his platform. And so like working with other creators is beneficial in that sense. Is like it can pay your bills as well as like teach you a lot about how a platform works. You know.
How'd you find him?
I met him I was filming for some of these smaller YouTubers, and then we went to this big plane convention, and then met him there at like a creators mix-up.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he was the pilot of the plane you jumped out of.
No, that would be crazy.
Yeah, I think it's important to also realize that it's a skill that you're building when you're good at content creation. Everybody here is doing social media for other people, right? So what are you really good at, and how can you monetize that? Are you good at teaching it? Are you good at doing it for other people? And that's really helpful. And the sponsorship thing is great as well. I think that can be difficult because that takes some of the creativity away, unless it's like a sponsored spot, like something like a podcast or something like that. You had a question?
Yeah, so kind of going in the opposite direction of monetization, more for like attention and viewer base. Just for perspective of someone who has like 500 followers on Instagram, 4 followers on YouTube, so like not a big base at all. If I were to make like a proof of concept for like a film, or like trying to generate some sort of like attention for a film or project coming up, what platform would you use for that? Again, starting with no data or no fan base. What platform would you use, and how would you approach that?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, because I think probably a lot of people here too, they want to promote films, and that is really difficult because social media right now is so oversaturated with everyone trying to sell you on something, whether they're a rapper, whether they're a magician, like everyone wants you to check out their thing. And so I don't think that there's like just one platform. I think you just have to experiment with all of them. And you may have to make content like what we were saying before that may not directly relate to the film, but maybe it could be film adjacent. So maybe you can make TikToks, and then those TikToks are also Reels and YouTube Shorts and everything, about movie trivia that's in the same vein as the genre movie that you're trying to promote. So say you're making a horror movie and you do a lot of horror movie trivia shorts, and then now you're starting to get followers of people who are invested in horror films, and then after you've got a few thousand, you don't even need a few thousand, if you just have a dedicated 500 people, now you put out a promo for your film, and that 500 followers, they all like it and they all share it, and now that video has a lot higher chance of being seen. So yeah.
I've had a lot of success doing like behind the scenes short form content for like Instagram and YouTube. Just, if I have a film, before the film comes out, I could talk vaguely about the writing process or the pre-production process. Once it comes out, I could break down certain scenes, how I did like the sound designing of the shot list. I storyboard a lot of my films, so I'll compare like the storyboards versus the final thing and see how closely it lines up. And again, I do a lot of work for people with bigger followings, but my personal Instagram is pretty much just like yours, and I still will get a decent amount of views on those, and even though it's not all the views in the world, at least 1 or 2 filmmaker friends will share them, and I'll get 1 or 2 follows, and that's not a lot of follows, but they're very high quality follows, because they're other filmmakers that work in my area that could potentially be someone I work with in the future. I think I have, I don't know if this is me talking about music video I did.
Videos, and I just directed every Christian music video for John Chris. That's the title of the song, and actually every Christian. So a lot of my work has been in parody, and of course the key to making a great parody is just doing mountains of research. I watched hundreds of Christian music videos ruined by YouTube recommendations. So the song already narrates a lot of the tropes, but as a director, it's my job to really see this project to its full potential. The title is Every Christian Music Video. That's a bold title, and we don't have the budget to shoot everything any Christian music video has done. So I'm trying to do a lot of research, understand all the different visual languages of all these different videos, and find creative ways to combine as much as possible while still being obtainable for our budget. A good example is while researching, I kept on seeing this mirror shot come up over and over again. A lot of times somebody's crying in the reflection of the mirror. That's a simple thing that wasn't in the original song, but we found a way to put in. I will say another key is still finding little ways to put your own creative spin on it. Director John was one of those things. Also, the church shots, I was very inspired by the Squirrel Peck performance video. I just always thought it was so beautiful, and I showed this to our DP. We were really trying to copy the haze look and the light flares in the background, and I think we got pretty close. My favorite shot is definitely the last one. I think it looks like the poster for a Christian movie.
So yeah, people really like that, and particularly other filmmakers really like that, which is probably who you want to be attracting if you're making a short film that you want seen by ideally producers that would run with the concept.
I think you could also consider what's your favorite platform, right? Because you might be your target audience, right? If you're looking for other filmmakers, what's your favorite platform? That means you'll be up to date with what's happening on the platform. You'll know the trends. You'll know what's interesting. You know what's popular, and it'll be easier for you to show up there. And then you can take that same content and repurpose it to those other platforms. And then once you get consistent with the platform of your choice, then you can branch out and start optimizing for those different platforms.
Actors have agents.
Yeah.
Who do influencers use to review contracts when dealing with sponsors and things of the like?
So what maybe you might actually know more a little bit this, but I do think a lot of agencies are now accepting influencers. And then there's also managers too. Yeah,
I mean, I think a lot, we were talking about this earlier at the other session, but I think a lot of regular agents kind of shy away from the influencer thing. If somebody brings you a contract, they'll negotiate it for you, but they're still very specific on acting projects. But there are a lot of influencer agencies that have popped up, and most of them are taking care of people who have really large numbers. So there is kind of this middle ground of all of these people who are like micro-influencers that don't have a safe space to get somebody to get them brand deals and stuff. And then of course you have those platforms that are like, we have all the brands here, sign up with us, and we'll get you brand deals, and those are hit or miss.
Yeah. It's such a new space that it's really difficult for advertisers to find individual influencers. Like, most likely you'll just receive a DM from someone if you have a big enough following.
Or you could go get it, right?
Yeah.
So send the email to the people that you're interested in creating the content for, somebody that you're like, oh, I know I would do a great job on this. And then hopefully they'll ask you for your rates.
Any generic guidance on what the rates should be?
Oh.
Yeah.
Ask them what their budget is.
Yeah.
That's the, what are your rates? What's your budget for this kind of project? Because you don't want to get into a situation where you say, here's my rates, and then that's nothing close to what they can do, and then that's where the conversation stops. So you kind of want to be in a position where you can kind of see what they're offering first. But it could be anywhere from a free piece of product to $500 for a post to $2,000 for a post. It really depends on your engagement, their budget, and your audience.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of being honest about what your engagement is. Like, our podcast doesn't draw in like the most views of any podcast, but we appeal to a very specific niche, and so we could show that we know there are 100 people on our podcast that like really interact with everything every week, and that might be smaller than most things they're looking for, but if they know like they're guaranteed 100 people are going to see it that are very specifically interested in what they offer, that gives you a little more bargaining power. So yeah, you want to be honest about how many followers you have and what you could actually offer this company, but also what you could offer them beyond like just views.
And also UGC, we haven't talked about that at all, especially for people who are filmmakers, right? It's really just a simplified version of making commercials for someone, right? You have all the tools, you can do all of it by yourself, you can take their product or their service and create content for them. It really doesn't matter what kind of platform you have and how much of an audience that you have. It's more important the quality of your work, because if they can come in under budget from having to hire a whole production team to film some things, you can help them out. Yes.
Okay, so I'm an actor and I see you in UGC. Things come across actors access all the time.
Yeah.
And they're always a little bit, at first I was sketched out by them, and now I'm like, they're becoming more something, and I've shot like one or two now, and it's okay. But is there anything, contract, I guess this is like a bigger contract question, but is there anything that we should know about as we move forward with the writer's strike and the SAG strike and everything? Because this is a new way of making content. And I don't know, I think that's a crazy way of saying, is there anything you should know about UGC projects?
Yeah, I can start about what you should be doing now, separate from this strike, but make sure it's a limited amount of time that they have access to it. Make sure if they are going to run ads with it, you are getting extra money, because that is not only they're making extra money off of it, but also now you and your brand are behind their video on their ad, and they can do whatever they want with it. So those are two things that I would definitely pay attention to. I'll think for some more. Anything from you guys?
Anything that says in perpetuity, don't do.
Yeah.
Because then you're 20 years from now, your face will be in front of something that you didn't even know that you signed up for.
Yeah. Time limits.
Yeah. And then I think for those in particular, when it comes to like strikes, I think most commercials are non-union for the most part, so I think you're okay to do those during the strike. But hopefully the strike will be reversed.
And it's very interesting because you can do influencer packages right now that doesn't compete with the strike at all, where we've seen a lot of actors now really interested in it because it's like, oh, I have these skills and it's really easy for me to just switch over. I've been doing these self-tapes nonstop, so I know how to work my phone camera and it's an easy pivot. when doing UCG content, I would also keep in mind what else you can offer. Because a lot of the times when you see it on casting networks or Actors Access, they say this is what we have. This is what we would like from you. And if you convert them or they hire you, then that's an open door. You can come back to them and say, hey, I have this idea for these 3 series of videos. Or it might be interesting if I also take photos for you. I am a photographer and I'm really good at this. Would you be interested in this as well? Anything else for contracts? I guess watching out for AI too, making sure that they can't put that content into some sort of AI generator to create.
Yeah, if you do anything voice related and you notice the script isn't advertising anything or isn't really like telling any story, it's just a bunch of sentences, that's a pretty clear indicator that they're trying to train an AI with your voice. They're just having you say random things, which that's probably going to be illegal soon, but I've heard of people running into that.
That was a good question.
I have one more question, sorry. So for Robert and Chase on your podcast, when you guys bring guests on, what is that process like? Like, let's say it's a guest you don't know very well. Do you have a pre-interview with them? Do you have like an outline of what that discussion's going to look like?
So we don't do a pre-interview, really. I mean, we have before, especially if they ask. We'll go through with that. But the big thing, or at least my big thing, I'm not going to speak for Robert, is if you're going to interview someone on the podcast, I want to learn everything about you conversationally. We do research beforehand, so that way we don't, disrespect anybody. If they had we had an actress on who was in, which movie, Marvel movie?
Oh, She-Hulk.
She-Hulk. And so just making sure that you understood like what role she played, understand, so that way you don't disrespect anybody. But I want to learn from the people the same as the people listening. So we don't do anything super technical.
Yeah, we try to tailor it to what we know the guest strengths are. Like, because the main draw of our podcast is we develop short films on the podcast. So if we have writer friends we're close with, we know that they could write with us. If we're meeting someone for the first time, we're not going to make them work with us. We're just going to talk to them for a little bit. And yeah, just have a basic knowledge of what they've done. Usually we're inviting them on because we're fans of them. So just make sure they know that they're a big deal to us and ask them the stuff that we're really interested in. Never have someone on you're not interested in just because they're popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you
Oh,
know
worries.
but do you find fans are more attentive towards educational information or more relational?
That's a really good question. So when you're making content, and this is kind of like one of the big things, I can't believe we haven't brought it up, you need to be providing the audience something. And it either needs to be educational or entertaining. So if your content that you're making isn't either educational or entertaining, and entertaining is, subjective, people like learning and people like laughing. So if your content doesn't fall into one of those 2 categories, that might be why you're not getting views. I think always starting educationally, provide, like we talked earlier about fun facts about horror movies to get people in, because not only do people like learning new things, they love correcting you if you're wrong. And so if you do a fun fact about a movie and you're a little bit off, your comments will be filled with people and they'll start following you, because even though they're kind of hating on you, they are interested. And so, yeah, I always lean education first, and then you can get them entertained.
Same. I think education is great too, because there's going to be some sort of SEO benefit to that, right? People are going to be searching for some of those things, and your content will be able to answer a question for somebody. We haven't talked at all about tools. With content creation, you're always using some sort of software or something that's helping you to make things work faster. So I would love to hear, what are you guys using in terms of tools, and then if there's any like cool AI things that you're doing with tools, I'd love to hear that too.
Yeah. I mean, edit a lot, Adobe Premiere, just the whole Adobe suite is great. we have found that for some videos, the algorithm kind of likes it more if you shoot it on a phone. Like, they've gone back and forth on that, but sometimes they don't want something really highly produced. Unless like that's your niche. Like my film behind the scenes videos, I'm always gonna produce them. But yeah, some stuff they like it when it looks like it's shot on a phone. And they like it if you tweak it in the in-app editing.
Something. Add some text there or something.
And the reasoning behind that is the second most people sees a video and it looks like a commercial, they will swipe right by. If it looks too produced, they feel like they're being sold something, they keep going. So that's why that GVC content is so popular right now, because it's someone on a phone. I mean, that being said, the sketches and stuff that we've shown today, like the Hallmark sketch, that's shot on a C200 camera. It's a very nice camera. It's way more expensive than a phone. Well, maybe not anymore. Phones have gotten pricey. But we actually, in the edit, lower the quality a little bit. So that way, people don't think it's an ad. So
I've been using Milanote a lot. You guys ever use that?
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
It helps me because like I used to just write down ideas like on my phone notes, and then it just got super unorganized. And now I'm like able to have these little sticky notes with like specifically short form ideas versus like long form ideas, and that just kind of helps me like dump everything out, but able to like keep it organized.
What's that called?
Milanote.
Milanote?
I'll outline in it occasionally. Yeah.
I'm all over the place in terms of how I collect my content ideas. Sometimes I'm sending voice memos to myself. Sometimes I'm writing it down in notes. It really depends on what's the easiest and where I am and how to capture it.
When we collaborate on writing sketches, like some of the ones we saw, we found the most helpful like collaboration software is just the Apple Notes app. You just add 3 people to an Apple Note. You could all type in random lines. Yeah. There are so many other pieces of software that try to offer collaborative writing, but Apple Notes is free, and it works so well without all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, there's a lot of free alternatives to everything. So if you're trying to edit your videos, there's high quality free editing software, so you don't have to use iMovie anymore. You can use like DaVinci as a pretty solid free version. Screenwriting software, if that's your thing, there's a ton of free options for that. There's free for everything. And if it's not free, you can pirate it probably.
Chase is endorsing stealing.
Yes, yes I am. And this is the official statement from the Try-On film.
Yes.
Again, I don't know if you guys answered, but you kind of touched on it, but higher quality production. Many times that we might set the camera, background all set, or like you were saying, just a GoPro, just to get more content out. I felt like sometimes I was so worried about having the time to set stuff up, I just wouldn't do it. Have you guys run into that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything we do when it comes to the podcast or the sketches, it's most of our kind of group of creators, they're all from video production. So you have people like setting up lights their way. They have, everything's done very professionally, even though it might not need to be professional sometimes. And then, I mean, when we do our podcast, we have 2 lights that we set up, and we have a little audio interface that we plug into the MacBook. It doesn't need to be a huge production. And for short form content and even long form content, it doesn't have to be amazing as long as the video itself is good. As long as it isn't super grainy and hard to see, people will enjoy the video even if it doesn't look very good at all.
Yeah, and the format usually depends on like what genre of content you're looking to create. Like we'll produce sketches a little higher because people are kind of used to watching a sketch that looks a little more produced, but yeah, if you're just like doing fun facts about horror movies or whatever, it could very well just be more successful just on your phone with one light as opposed to a big production. But also, if I'm a film director and I want to show off how good my films look, those behind the scenes things probably should be high quality. So it really depends on what you're trying to create and what your goal is for the content.
People do tend to be more forgiving when the quality is a little bit lower because it gives off the feeling that this was off the fly, this was improv, this wasn't overly thought out. So that's something to take into consideration too. And then staggering the type of content that you're doing. So if something is this type of content that you do is highly produced, then maybe you have some talking straight to camera videos that aren't as highly produced that can help as well. I know that's a barrier for entry for me as well, which is why I like TikTok, because if I don't look put together on TikTok, it's totally fine. And the algorithm kind of rewards you for that. Those are the videos that kind of blow up.
Yeah.
This is more kind of a just for fun question, but do you have any content or any videos that you put less effort into that unexpectedly blew up more than your?
Every time. Every
so
time.
what are some examples?
It's always the ones that you didn't do any effort at all that gets the most views. And it's so frustrating. You're like, oh, I wish people could see the thing I worked really hard on.
Yeah.
What's a good
What's an
example?
So we have podcast clips where there's an episode that we had a lot of paid work that week, and we didn't spend as much time doing the podcast. We come in tired, and for some reason the clip from that podcast blew up more than the one that we're really proud of. Like that's usually what we run into.
Yeah. I have an example from my personal TikTok. I did this. I don't have it, but I did this like comedy video just myself. It was a tweet I saw. It was talking about the Elvis movie had come out, and it was the tweet was like, "I'm Pickle Elvis," the Rick and Morty meme. And I didn't even mean to post it. I was just sending it to my wife, but I posted it. And then I went to bed and I woke up and it had like 300,000 views. And it's really embarrassing, very embarrassing. And then, I'll post an actual like stand-up bit and it gets 500 views. And so it's like, well.
Yeah, actually the most viral anything I've done has gone, not for a company or for someone else, but just my personal stuff. Like, I spent so much work on these films and everything, but the thing that's gotten the most views was a tweet where I said that one of the kids from Stranger Things looks like he listens to Playboy Cardi, and that's what got more views than anything else. But that's also, like, you never know what's going to blow up, so that's just more incentive to really put your everything into stuff you're going to put out.
Like for me, I had, on TikTok originally, I was just repurposing content from Instagram. And then one day, I just started dating women and I was really excited about this girl I was dating and just talked about it on camera and turned my phone off. And then 2 million views later, I was like, oh, I guess I create LGBTQ content on TikTok now. And then it kind of like got out of hand from there. I think if you are excited about something and you're inspired by something and it's real for you, sometimes those are the videos that people really gravitate towards.
My biggest one is, everyone in here is familiar with Diary of a Wimpy Kid, right?
Yeah.
They came out with this do-it-yourself book. And they I like how I see head nods right now because I'm about to explain why this is really cool. Basically, so I found mine that was like in my bookshelf and just opened it up, and it's literally been 11 years since I wrote into it. And so I think I was 10 at that time. And obviously, I would hope that my humor has changed since then, even if it's very gradual, but it has definitely. And so I was writing stuff in there like make 10 predictions for the future, and I put like McDonald's will no longer exist. I was making some bold claims, stuff that I don't know, and it was wild. And so I literally set up my camera.
What if that came true though?
Right? They'd be wild. But so I found that book, and within a span of an hour, I had already filmed and edited that, and that's the least amount of time I've spent on anything. And it got 1.2 million views, I think, because I looked at the comments and everyone was like, yo, I have that same exact book, but I just don't know where it is, or they would share what they wrote in their books like that, and I'm like, this makes me upset because I spent an hour on it, but it taught me a lot about social media and why it did so well, and that's because other people have this book, and they just they go on social media to relate to people sometimes, and I don't know, it was really cool to look at, and was very discouraging, like you guys were saying, just in terms of you want people to see your good stuff. But
what if all 10 predictions were right? That'd be crazy.
It'd be wild. I was telling people Justin Bieber was gonna die, and it was insane. I was a messed up 10-year-old.
So that's a perfect movie is the kid has magic powers.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, Bieber dies, McDonald's dies. You're like, wait, what else is in the book?
Oh, that's good.
Cool. Any last questions before we wrap up here? Yeah.
I guess we have to go to the YouTube channel to find out more about how the ant ended up.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, last question. Okay, so how do you, and you probably talked about this earlier during your marketing workshop, Jazelle, but how do you as a creative find ways to continue marketing yourself when you are your own brand and not feeling like self-conscious about promoting yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing to realize is the same way, if you're an actor, the same way you have to get out of your own way when it comes to these auditions or like pushing through a production process, right, when things might not be perfect, it's the same thing here, right? You have to get out your own way. And then creating enough of your process that is already pre-planned so that you don't have to be making big decisions every time you sit down to make content. So what are the buckets of content that you know are safe for you to create? Sometimes that's, what are the things that your friends will tell you to shut up and stop talking about? Like the things that you can just ramble about all day long that just so happen to live in the world of the acting type that you are. You don't want it to go against your type, but you want it to live in the same world. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. So figuring that out and then creating content based off of that and playing, I think is the best medicine for that. Also, if you can figure out for yourself what you like on social media and lean into that, like we said earlier, being inspired is going to be the best thing for you. No one wants to see your content if you feel like you're forcing to put out this content. And then if you can think about notating or think about social media as a way to journal, because a lot of the times actors don't realize how interesting, or production, anybody, we don't realize how interesting our lives are. And so instead of trying to create new content all the time, you can just be documenting what you're doing and using your social media as a little diary journaling platform.
Sure. As for the self-conscious part, I mean, sometimes you're just going to be self-conscious. I never put out anything that I'm like, okay, if someone important saw this, would I be really embarrassed? Like the Elvis TikTok. I usually don't post anything like that. But also, it's hard to not be cringy. That word gets thrown around a lot. And then it's gotten to the point where it's like, even in like theatrical drama acting, people are like, oh my God, that's so cringy. Because everyone's so afraid of like anything sincere. Everybody wants to be ironic to kind of protect themselves in case anybody makes fun of them. They can say, oh, I was just being funny, I was being ironic. But, I mean, if it's true to you and it's something you enjoy, post it.
And then don't play into the idea of I have to, I must post.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's go around one more time and just tell us where we can find you guys.
My name's Cruz Crane, C-R-U-Z-C-R-A-N-E. Thanks, James. It's my hype man back there. So yeah, if you just go on YouTube and look up Cruz Crane, it should be the first thing to pop up, I hope, unless there are any imposters out there, but I think it should just be me.
Yeah, that's a cool name.
Thanks, man. Yeah, not as cool as Chase, but
No, it's cool. There's a lot of chases. I don't know any cruises other than Tom.
see, I live in his shadow, so.
You can find me on Instagram at Chase Bridges, and then there's some underscores, but Chase Bridges should show up. And yeah, that's kind of where I chill. You can follow me on Twitter, but it's just kind of unhinged thoughts. Like, I was like, we need more blimps. I ain't seen no blimps lately.
That's so true.
Yeah, I'm Robert, 2_Isaac. Chase forgot our podcast is @WrittenByPod.
That's true.
On all platforms. Oh, also, if you go to @WrittenByPod on YouTube, our most recent short film, Troubled Date, is on there. That's the most recent thing we've come out with that we're really proud of. So @WrittenByPod, follow that. Also, @Shama for Reels, that's our comedian friend. If he posts a video, usually one of us worked on it. So, yeah.
And I'm Jazelle, and you can find us at creativesmeetmarketing.com. It's the same on Instagram, and my personal Instagram is Jazelle's Artistry. And if you want some fun LGBTQ content on TikTok, I am also Jazelle's Artistry. And I do strategy sessions with creatives all the time, and we can sit down and look at exactly what you want to be posting and create content calendars, or just sit down and do like some devised content creation and come up with great ideas for you. So it has been a pleasure for us. I'm going to hand it back over to Ashley to wrap us up. Thank you.